My mom's fiancé stole my college savings, $7,000 I'd worked years to save. When I told my mom, she told me to shut up, so I called the cops. Later, I found out my dad had left me a huge inheritance, but my whole family was using it without telling me. A few weeks ago, my mom and her fiancé got arrested, and now my grandparents on her side hate me for it. All this happened because I reported them, and I had good reasons to. My mom and I never really got along, especially after my dad died 10 years ago. I'm 17 now and supposed to start college soon. I always knew she wouldn't save a dime for me, so I worked for it myself. I started at 14 after school jobs, odd gigs, and saving every birthday and holiday dollar. Over 4 years, I managed to save nearly $7,000. It was all in cash, kept in a wooden box my dad made for me, hidden deep in my closet. I didn't have a bank account, my mom wouldn't let me open one, and I told no one about the box. I still don't know how it got found. A few days ago, I opened the box, and it was empty. When I asked my mom, she said her fiancé took the money to invest in a new house. I was furious. We had a huge fight, me versus the two of them, but in the end, I'm just a teenager, and they had the power. All I could do was lock myself in my room and cry. Everything I'd worked for was gone, and I wasn't sure I could rebuild in time for college. That day, I made up my mind to make them pay. 3 days later, they were arrested. Now they're facing charges. My only problem now is that my grandparents, who always supported me, suddenly turned against me. I don't get it. My mom's fiancé, let's call him Rob, came into our lives 2 years ago, and I hated him from the start. He's one of the worst people I've ever met, an emotional abuser. He never hit me, but he constantly tried to break me down with words, just like he did with my mom. He'd scream and curse at me, and when I didn't react, it only made him angrier. He'd lose control and say even worse things, and my mom never once stood up for me. After my dad died, my mom stayed single for a few years, then met Rob. He seemed okay at first, but after one big fight, his true self came out. He manipulated her completely and moved in within 6 months. Rob was useless, lazy, couldn't keep a job, and constantly borrowed money from his own parents, even though he was 35. He spends more than he earns and relies on whoever he's with to support him. When he's not fighting with my mom, he's leeching off her. The worst part is, my mom's not rich. She's just a senior manager at a local supermarket, decent pay, but nowhere near enough to support Rob's lifestyle. I've always tried to stay out of their mess. Since I was 14, I've done everything I could to be independent. I never asked my mom for anything unless I absolutely had to. When I started working, I stopped asking my mom for anything. These days, the only things I rely on her for are a roof over my head and food on the table. I never expected anything more because I knew better. She made it clear since I was a kid that she didn't like me. She was never kind to me, and I always felt unwanted. As I got older, that feeling turned into certainty. When my dad was alive, he always had my back. If Mom got too angry, he'd step in and defend me. But after he passed away, I was completely alone. It's been like that for years now. Once Rob came into the picture, things only got worse. But I kept telling myself that once I got into college, I could finally get out and leave it all behind. Now, that future feels so far away, almost impossible. For 3 days after the money was stolen, I shut down. I just stayed in my room, not doing anything. I was depressed beyond words. The day after I found the box empty, we moved into a new house. I did whatever chores I was supposed to, but didn't speak a word to my mom or Rob. And they didn't seem to care at all. On the 3rd day, my mom told me to dress up for a housewarming party they were throwing. I snapped. I yelled that I wasn't celebrating anything because they used my money to buy this place. The only reason they could afford it was because they stole everything I'd saved. She got mad and told me I should be grateful, that now we finally owned a home, not just rented one, and I needed to shut up and move on. She said I owed her for raising Mez if that wasn't her basic responsibility. The house was way too big for the 3 of us. I knew they bought it just to show off the nice address, the big rooms. That night, I was so upset I did something I'd never done before. I called my dad's parents. After he died, my grandparents on his side distanced themselves from us. I guess it was too painful for them. I never really understood why, but they just stopped talking to us. Still, I had their numbers. And in that moment of desperation, I called. I'd already told my mom's parents what happened, expecting they'd step in, but they didn't. They just said they were happy my mom finally bought a house, and that I should look on the bright side, at least we wouldn't have to pay rent anymore. That really shocked me. They used to support me, even if quietly. This time, they were totally neutral. It hurt. So, when my mom told me to just accept what happened, I decided to reach out to my other grandparents. I hoped they'd see things differently, give me some hope. I don't know why, but something told me to call them. Thankfully, they picked up. I told them everything, how I knew they probably didn't want contact, how I understood it hurt, but I needed help. I said if my dad were alive, I knew he'd want them to help me now. I told them Mom took the money I worked years to save for college, and now I didn't even know if I could go. Then my grandpa said something I'll never forget. He said he didn't understand why I had to save up in the first place, because my dad had set up a college fund for me before he died. That completely stunned me. I had no idea. My mom never told me about it. I just assumed she hadn't saved anything for me. I never even considered that my dad might have planned ahead. He died so young, I figured he didn't have the chance. So when my grandparents broke the news to me, I was genuinely shocked. By then, I was already angry and upset, so I immediately asked them to send me any kind of proof I could use against my mom. They said they'd try to find some documents and call me back in a couple of hours. I sat in my room trying to piece everything together, and it suddenly hit me, Mom, and Rob had clearly stolen my college fund and used the money for themselves to buy a house. As far as I knew, my mom didn't make enough to afford a place like that, and Rob hadn't worked in the past 3 months. I highly doubted he had the cash for such a purchase. All I needed was proof, and then I'd report everything to the police. A few hours later, my grandparents finally called me back and sent pictures of documents my mom had signed, promising to use the money my dad left behind for my education and to make sure I had a comfortable life. I literally laughed out loud reading that because she had done the exact opposite, made sure my life was as uncomfortable as possible. The fact that she had signed those documents herself made me furious, but I was also angry at my grandparents for never telling me about them. It felt like they abandoned me after my dad died and just turned their backs on me. My mom was never really there for me, and her parents only pretended to be on my side. My dad's parents were too deep in their own grief to care about me. When I asked my grandparents why they never showed me the documents earlier, they gave me a pretty lame excuse. They said they just forgot about it after my dad's death because I was too young at the time, and later we lost contact. And the papers slipped their minds. They were old, after all. I couldn't really argue with that, so I just let it go. Once I had the evidence, I called a friend of mine whose dad worked in law enforcement and told him I needed help. That evening, right in the middle of my mom and Rob's housewarming party, my friend's dad showed up with a cop and a lawyer to arrest them for using my money. My mom basically set herself up for a lawsuit. She broke the terms of a legal agreement she had signed years ago. While I explained everything to the party guests, the cops arrested her and Rob, and honestly, it was the most satisfying moment of my life. Almost everyone they were trying to impress former coworkers. Friends looked completely shocked and disgusted as they were let out in handcuffs. Even in that moment, my mom and Rob looked so smug, like I was the one who had done something terrible. My mom's parents were at the party too, and when they saw their daughter getting arrested, they were devastated. After that, they refused to speak to me. Once everyone left, I was alone in that huge house with no clue what to do next. I felt awful. Yeah, they got arrested, but they'd probably be out on bail in a couple of hours. Even though I planned to press charges, it could take months to gather enough evidence for a real case. And there was still a chance they could twist things around in their favor. There was no way to predict how this would end, and until then, I wasn't getting my dad's money back. Either way, I was still losing. I couldn't sell the house. It was in my mom and Rob's name. Even if I wanted to force them to sell it and return the money, I'd have to go to court and fight it out with a lawyer. Thankfully, I didn't have to worry about legal costs because my friend and his dad were incredibly kind and offered to take care of everything, understanding how bad my situation was. Still, I had no idea what to do next. To make things worse, the only people who were kind of on my side now wanted nothing to do with me. My grandparents on my mom's side said I was an ungrateful son. They admitted things were rough between me and my mom, but sending her to jail after everything she supposedly did for me, that, they said, was too far. They completely cut off contact with me, and that was the most painful part. Now I feel totally alone. Technically, I won the battle against my mom and Rob, but long term, it feels like I've lost so much more. I don't know what to do anymore, and I feel completely powerless after sending my mom and her fiancé to jail for stealing the college savings I had worked so hard, for money they used to buy themselves a new house. So, before we move on to the next update, let's take a second to talk about this story in the comments. Personally, no matter what kind of flack I get for saying this, I think it's a pretty complicated situation. On one hand, yeah, I totally get why the guy did what he did. He had every right. But on the other hand, man, turning your parents in like that, that's heavy. If I put myself in the mother's shoes, it'd crush me. If my own kid did that to me, I'd be devastated. Like, what was even the point of raising a child if it ends like this? Some people might argue that it was her duty to raise him anyway, just because she brought him into the world. Sure, maybe no one asked her to have a kid, but still, she did. She put her time, energy, and money into him. It's just one of those things that only fully hits you once you have your own children. So yeah, I think it's a pretty deep, philosophical debate. Anyway, let's get to the update and see what happened next. Update 1. I moved out of the house my mom and Rob bought. It's been a week since I reported them to the police. After spending 48 hours in custody, they were released. As soon as I heard they were coming back home, I left. I didn't want a confrontation. I'd already packed everything I needed, so when they walked in the door, I walked out. They tried to stop me and talk, but I didn't want to hear it. I jumped in the taxi I had called ahead of time and went straight to my friend's place where I'm living now. This is the same friend whose dad helped me get a lawyer and go through with the arrest. For the past few days, the three of US May, his dad, and the lawyer have been working together daily, trying to figure out the fastest way to wrap this whole thing up. Honestly, I'm so mentally drained, I'm willing to settle. We've scheduled a meeting with them, their lawyer, and the court-appointed mediator. It's happening in a couple of days. Hopefully, we can work something out. But if they refuse my terms, we'll have to go to court, and that could take forever. I just want things to be fair. I need financial support so I can actually finish school. My friend's dad offered to help me with money in the meantime, but I feel really uncomfortable accepting that. I just don't know how to process it all. Update 2. Okay, something wild just happened and I'm shaking with anger. What I found out is disgusting. I wasn't sure if it was real at first, but my mom sent screenshots, and now I don't know what to believe. There are only 2 days left until the mediation, and today, literally just a few hours ago, my mom emailed me. She had no way to contact me otherwise since I've blocked her everywhere, but she made a new account and sent a message that flipped my whole world upside down. Here's the core of it. My entire family was in on this. That's why both sets of grandparents were acting so weird the whole time. From the very beginning, they were part of the scheme. My mom didn't just blow through the money my dad left Mino. Everyone took a piece, and they all kept quiet. Now, I get why my maternal grandparents were so upset when I reported her to the police. They pretended to support me but never actually stood up to her. She had dirt on them. And now it makes sense why my dad's parents never told me about the documents my mom signed until I directly asked. They were all complicit. And the kicker? My mom has proof. She was emailing with them when I was around 14 or 15. Somehow, she kept the messages, and they were dumb enough to talk about the whole thing through email. She sent me screenshots of those emails and said that, since I had her arrested, it was only fair to drag everyone else into this too. According to her, it wasn't right for only her to take the fall when all of them had been in on it spending my money for their own benefit. My father had left me a large sum, but everyone involved, including his lawyer, decided it would be better to keep it from me and use it for themselves. I still can't believe this actually happened. I keep rereading the messages, trying to make sense of it all. It just feels unreal. My entire family turned against me, even my dad's parents, which honestly shocked me. The only reason my grandparents finally told me about the documents and sent me the proof was because they were eaten up by guilt and realized what they were doing was wrong. When I called and asked them for help, they decided it was time to tell me the truth. They had planned to tell me sooner, but my mother and her parents convinced them to stay silent, because if the truth came out, they'd go down with them. They agreed not to reach out on their own, but promised that if I ever asked directly, they would confess. When I asked if there was anything they could do to help, they sent me the documents as proof. That's how the whole thing was exposed. I'm glad they finally helped, but it doesn't excuse what they did. It also explains why they've been acting so distant and weird. Even after sending the documents, they're ashamed. They still can't openly admit what they did, and they should feel guilty. Right now, I just feel numb. I don't know what to believe or how to even start processing this. I haven't told my friend yet because this is just too huge. I'm shaking. I feel betrayed, hurt, furioused. I don't know what to do with all those emotions. I know I'll need to talk to my lawyer because this changes everything. We'll definitely bring it up during the negotiations. My mom, trying to drag everyone else down with her in revenge for being exposed, forgot that in doing so she's only hurting herself more. She's going to lose a lot, but I'm still grateful she told me the truth because now I finally understand. There's no one in this world truly on my side. Maybe just a couple of people. But I've learned I can't count on anyone, and that's my reality. The only thing I can really do now is talk to my friend and ask him to pass this on to his dad so we can all sit down with the lawyer and figure out the next steps. But no matter what happens, I am going to college this year. I've made that decision, and I'm not backing down. I'm going to ask my friend's dad for help not to pay for college, but to co-sign my student loan application. That's probably my only option right now. Third update. Hey, we had a meeting with the mediator today, and just like I said I would, I brought up what my mom had told me. She basically admitted to everything. Now she'll have to return the money she and the rest of the family stole from me. She tried to justify it by saying some of it was used to raise me, and that we shouldn't expect the full amount to be repaid from the fund. But I stood firm and said that even if that were true, my grandparents still need to return their share. They didn't just take money, they took my dreams and my future. I want it all back so I can live a decent life. I'm done being dependent. I've talked everything over with my lawyer and my friend's dad, and they told me cases like this, unfortunately, aren't rare. But that doesn't make what my mother did any less cruel. They were furious, just like I am. They promised to do everything they could to make sure I'd never again be at the mercy of someone else's money. If that money hadn't been stolen, I could have had a comfortable life from the start. My dad made sure of that before he died, but my family couldn't handle that. They needed to take everything from me. That's how selfish they are. But now it's over. My lawyer and I agreed it's time to go straight for the heart. We're not just going to sit and watch them enjoy life at my expense. One thing's for sure, there will be another meeting, and this time all the grandparents will be there. It's clear now that they were involved too. This might even end up in court. For now, I'll take out a student loan and get through this, but I will get justice. And more than that, I'll get everything that was stolen from me. That money was meant for me, not them. That was part of the agreement my mom signed, a promise they all made to my dad'o protect me and make me happy. They broke that promise. They're all traitors, and I never want to see them again. That's it for now. As I said, let me know what you think in the comments. At first, I wasn't sure if the author was 100% in the right, but after this, it's crystal clear. Yes, he absolutely is. His mom, grandparents, they stole his future, his money, and there's no justifying that. Thanks for watching to the end. Check out the previous video right here and good luck out there. 4-0.